Welcome to another episode of Andy's Chomping at the Bit, brought to you by Big Andy Media, the official sponsor of every Friday episode of Andy's Chomping at the Bit. And so today I decided I'm going to do one on depression, mainly because it's the holidays. That's not the main reason, but that's the big reason for the timing. It's because it's during the holidays. It's one of those times where a lot of people struggle with depression, and for various reasons. One of the reasons is simply, at least around here and farther north, the bigger of a problem it is we don't have as much daylight. Less sun has proven that, you absorb vitamins through the light. I believe it's vitamin D or E or something like that. Anyway, less sunlight essentially affects your mental health as well. So that's part of it. But there's other factors in the holidays that can make it tough too. And I do want to address something right off the bat, just to make sure everyone's on the same page when I'm talking about this. There is a big difference between simply being depressed about something and struggling with depression. Everybody will be depressed from time to time. People can get sad, they can get depressed. Depression is different. Okay? You can be actually diagnosed with depression and require medication to be able to function in a rational state of mind, essentially. And so that I'm kind of covering both of them on this. People will get depressed during the holidays, especially if they don't have family to spend time with, or if something from the past isn't there anymore, or if they're simply comparing themselves to someone else in the world. You can always find a reason to be depressed if your attitude, if your focus is in the wrong area. Depression's a little more complicated than that. You might need medication in that situation, and that's not a bad thing. I can honestly, and there's a lot of things that go with depression. Some people struggle with anxiety, with depression. I personally, in high school, was diagnosed with bipolar depression. And so one of the struggles with that is when I first found out, I didn't want to accept it, denied it. Fortunately, my mom tricked me into taking the medication. She essentially said, well, if you don't have a problem, then the medication shouldn't do anything. And so I took the medication. After a couple of weeks, I'm like, I'm not taking this anymore. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, it was making a difference. So, yeah, by taking the medication, I've been able to live a normal life. But I was scared at the time. I wouldn't say it. I didn't think it. Deep down, though, I was scared when I was diagnosed with it, because all I could think of were the stigmas going around with bipolar. He's crazy if he's got bipolar, and the anger, the violence, all these things that were associated with bipolar diagnosis that I had heard. At that point, so we're talking, this would have been 2000, that would have been 2004 or 2005, when I was diagnosed. Things have fortunately come a long way as far as understanding in the general scheme as far as the public, but there's still a long way to go. But the reason I'm telling you this is because I did start seeing a counselor. And for a while, I saw a counselor before, and they're like, oh, well, he's ADD, or he's ADHD, all these things. There's probably some truth to that as well. But the diagnosis that actually started changing things, as far as my mood and stabilization, was when they diagnosed me with bipolar depression, because then they were able to give me medication that it doesn't make me happy all of a sudden. That's what I want to make clear to people. The the medication, so I could still get sad. Trust me, I do. I can still get depressed. I do. But essentially, instead of this deep, deep slope that there's no way out of, it kind of creates a little more of a roll of the hill, so to speak, and allows me to rationally process things. That is the biggest struggle with when I'm on the lows without the medication, is the rational thinking is gone when you're dealing with depression and depressed thoughts. So the medication allowed me to think rationally. It allowed me to think, well, yeah, I'm really, it made it so I didn't essentially commit suicide multiple times, and do other irrational acts when you're super sad, super depressed. It didn't pull me out of anything necessarily, as far as I still made plenty of poor choices when I was on medication, but it wasn't from that. It was from other areas of my life that I just didn't work on. For instance, my addiction, or at least the drug addiction. I was taking medication up until I think it was 3 or 4 days before my first time using, and that was just somewhat coincidence. The Meyer Pharmacy on Lake Lansing Road, where I was getting my prescriptions, they happened to go for like 7 or 9 days without being able to actually refill it. I don't know what took them so long from the time I put in the order, but anyway, it's the past. There were a lot of other things going on in my life that really did that. I will say that it didn't help with the rational thinking because I wasn't on the medication at that point. But, it wasn't like a miracle, take this pill and poof, everything's fine. No, I still had struggles. I didn't deal with a lot of those, but it didn't make things easy when I wasn't on my medication. I can tell you that right now. I was more irritable. I mean, when you're sad, you're going to be more irritable in general. You're in a bad mood, and you can't come out of it when you actually necessarily when you're actually diagnosed. I put on a good mask a lot of times too. I think I've addressed this a million times. Even when I was on my medication, I put on a mask a lot. Didn't want to show when I was sad, because the common response I got when I mentioned something about being sad was, "Are you taking your medication?" Or, "You should talk to your doctor to get your medication adjusted." It doesn't quite work like that. Just to let you know. I mean, yeah, taking my medication was important, and I was taking it a lot of times when I'd say that. But simply because you're having a sad moment or you're depressed about something doesn't necessarily mean there's something wrong with the medication. Things in life happen, and what may be big to me might be minuscule to someone else, and vice versa on an issue. That, if I see something as small, it doesn't mean it is small necessarily to everyone. It should be small to everyone. It's just how it is to me. That's part of life, That's why some people can, when there's something traumatic like someone getting shot, and they don't get PTSD from it, then someone else does see that, and they struggle to wake up each day. It's life experiences essentially affect how we interpret events, or how we handle some of those things. But it's, dealing with depression in the holidays got tough for me, especially around when I did struggle with addiction. That's when depression really hit me. The worst moment I had, surprisingly, I shouldn't say surprisingly, it was Thanksgiving of 2020. I was living out in Colorado, And I was struggling with addiction. I was sober. I was clean and sober on Thanksgiving. I remember that. But I'd had a really, really rough month leading up to Thanksgiving. Uh, the previous month, I wasn't living in Denver. I was living in Avon. But I was struggling with my addiction, and that's why I was in Denver. And so I was taking my medication, but I wasn't taking anything for the trauma on that. I wasn't seeing anyone for the trauma on that. I surprisingly wasn't seeing anyone because after that event, I tried offing myself many times because I didn't know how to handle it. Simple as that. I knew the rationale behind it, but I wasn't accepting it deep down at the point. Anyway, what I struggled with was that Thanksgiving because I essentially spent that Thanksgiving alone. My family was back here in Michigan. I was in Colorado. I believe briefly I spoke with my mom on Thanksgiving. I don't think I talked to my dad that Thanksgiving. Maybe he was in the background when I talked to my mom. I didn't speak with my brother. I might have messaged a couple people briefly on Facebook, but I didn't actually, I didn't have Thanksgiving with anyone. I went to the grocery store, essentially bought a microwave version of Thanksgiving, I believe, which is pretty crazy looking back at it because I love to cook, especially from scratch. So microwave dinners isn't my thing. But different time back then. I was a little more. I was struggling a bit. I was renting a room from a 3-bedroom condo, so I had other people living in the same apartment essentially. And I kept to myself a lot, isolated. That's a dangerous thing to do, but that's what I did. I isolated. I went, had my microwave meal, essentially. It was a big one, but still. And then I went to my room, and it was a tough one. The urge to use wasn't nearly as strong as I thought it would be. The depression was really strong. The loneliness was really strong. I'm pretty sure I didn't have any money, otherwise I would have been in Denver during that time, realistically speaking. But it was the loneliness was caused that depression, and I stayed depressed that holiday season because I was alone, because I knew that I was running in circles with the addiction on top of my family being away. There's so many things that did, but the social aspect was a huge part for me. And feeling like I was falling short, that I had failed. That was a huge factor in that. And I know that it wasn't simply the being away from family that was causing that was the other stuff were a big contributing factor, because I spent my first Christmas clean and sober, after treatment. That would have been December of 2022. I spent that Christmas in jail. I had turned myself in to face the remaining charges of poor decisions that I had made. And when I first turned myself in, I thought I was going to go out and I didn't think I was going to be in jail for Christmas. At that time, I really didn't believe I was going to, because I had sought treatment. I was actively working on myself. And so I went in, and the first charge was Muskegon County. They essentially gave me what they call a PR bond, so no money required, of essentially signing a piece of paper saying, okay, I will be here during my next court date. But I did not know that I had a warrant out in Ottawa County at that point, for the same kind of charge. And so I went there, and they did not give me a PR bond. There's a little bit higher up, and so I sat there and I'm like, okay, well, I have a sentencing coming up here. We'll see how that goes for Neweggo. I did a virtual one, and I was told by my attorney that by taking the steps that I was taking and by actively working on improving myself, that most likely I was going to get probation for that one. So I was thinking, okay, December 20th, I can get bonded out and I'll be on probation. That's fine. And they were going to supposedly credit me for the time. I should have done a better job on my end as far as reading the plea deal. I didn't do a good job on that. But long story short, it wasn't simply probation. It was some time. It was 9 months. So I missed Christmas, and I assure you that was a hard Christmas as well. But it wasn't the hardest Christmas, because at that point I had had clean time under me. I'd been clean since September 7th of that year. I was actively working on myself. I had signed up for CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy or treatment, and that was within Ottawa County Jail. So I was actively working on myself even while incarcerated. I had been clean. I knew that I was going to stay clean at that point. It was a decision that I was willing to do anything and everything to stay clean, and that I was okay facing my poor decisions. It was out of my control. I was willing to accept that I didn't have control over those things, and I focused on what I could control. So, yeah, I didn't have my family there with me at that time. I wrote one hell of a song during that I was going to release this Christmas, but hopefully next Christmas I'll release it. But yeah, so I was able to make the most of that time. I was happy with where I was heading. I didn't obviously want to be in jail, but mentally I was happy with where I was at even then. I had done the scariest thing, which was not only clean up, but face past mistakes that I made. Some of them I obviously wasn't in the right state of mind, but guess what? I still made those decisions, and I had to face up to them. Anyway, so that was depressing, but at least I had the attitude at that point to get through. And so last year was my first Christmas since my clean time and ending the active addiction, where I was able to be with my family, and I was socially involved with outside of my family as well, and it was a very healthy holiday season last year. I didn't struggle with depression, surprisingly. It was very comforting, and so far, fingers crossed, I haven't struggled with depression this holiday season either. I've had struggles in other ways, but the holidays aren't causing it this time. Though actually, the biggest struggle I've had with depression this time is, like I mentioned earlier, the whole lack of daylight kind of throws me off my routine slightly. But I find ways to force myself to go outside, and it's not always comfortable. But you know what? I know what happens if I don't get that sunlight. If I start slipping down that depression route, I know how bad it can be. But not everyone has been as blessed as I am. Not everyone has a family to spend the holidays with. Not everyone's near their family. Not everyone, is in a situation where they want to be with their family. There's a lot of different variables where people are in life, where their surroundings, their environments, their so many different areas that can impact this. So I just want to take this last little bit to address that. If you are struggling through the holidays with depression, whether it be chronic depression or whether it be simply limited to just the holidays, just being depressed during the holidays. Regardless of the case, know that it's okay to have those feelings. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to struggle with depression. And it's okay to get help, professional help, for dealing with both depression as in the medical way or medical diagnosis, as well as simply being depressed. A therapist is too often, I believe, people look at therapy as oh, you're really screwed up if you have that problem. No, a therapist is one of the biggest blessings. If you have a cold, you're not cold. Not everyone goes to the doctor for cold. Say you have a stomach bug and a fever, and it's really bad. You don't know if it's the flu or COVID or whatever. You call your doctor just to, and you see your doctor. A therapist is the same concept, or a psychologist, psychiatrist, depending on what's advised. But that's like a doctor essentially for your mental health. And your mental health is darn important, just like your physical health is. You can't have one very well without the other. So understand it's okay to be depressed. It's okay to have sad thoughts. You can get professional help. And also know that there are people that care about you, even if you are alone at the moment or will be during the holidays. Know that people care about you. People do think about you, whether you believe it or not. And you're always welcome to reach out. Whether it be you or someone you know is struggling, feel free to reach out. You can message, if you want, you can message me at here at Andy's Chomping at the Bit, the Facebook page, the YouTube page, or you can even, if you want, you can message Big Andy Media, and I'll be able to respond to that as well. Whether it be in a comment for the social media or a private message, whatever floats your boat. If you're struggling, you can reach out. I probably won't give you any advice because I'm not a professional. I might give you a story where I've struggled too that might be similar, but I'm not going to by any means try telling you what to do, or as far as that goes. I'll just, at the very least, I will listen. I will read a message, and I'll respond to at least acknowledge that I read it. So, but you will make it through it. The best phrase that I have ever learned is "this too shall pass." For someone who deals with highs and lows as part of their, with bipolar, "this too shall pass" is the ultimate phrase, because when you're doing really high, when you're at the peak, this too shall pass. Remembering things will come back down. We're at the bottom, this too shall pass. You'll get over it. Things will get back up. Beautiful saying, keeps you level. But anyway, that is today's Daily Biscuit. Not Daily Biscuit, Andy's Chomping at the Bit. Sorry about that. Like I said, brought to you by Big Andy Media. I do want to mention, though, that we have the Singing for a Cause event as well. We have the requested live performances every first and third Sunday of every month from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Those stream on the Andy Schiffer music band page on Facebook, as well as it's also hosted by Big Andy Media on the Facebook page. At this time, it's only streamed through the Andy Schiffer band page. But like I said, you'll find it if you go to the music page, or if you go to Big Andy Media, you'll find it there as well. So feel free to tune into those. So not this Sunday, but the following Sunday, we'll have another performance. This current December Spotlight charity is Crystal Valley Care Fund out of Oceana County. They do amazing work as far as helping people struggling with expenses while, with serious illness and fires. So they're a great spotlight charity. Feel free to support them as best you can. Spread the word too. But yeah, so that's the Sing for a Cause events that we have on Sunday. I wish you guys a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will see you guys again on Monday for another Daily Biscuit. So take care.